Pulling research from The Lancet, anxiety disorders grew nearly 25% amongst the global population after COVID. Matt is no stranger to anxiety. It's the kind that makes him want to check the locks 5 times in a row in his house before going to sleep, or hold his breath on bridges, or say the same prayer 3 times before eating because he's afraid he said something wrong, or assume he said the wrong things in a social setting that will negatively affect his life. It's distracting when he tries to watch a movie, when he tries to relax, when he gets ready for the day. One of the few things that seems to ease the nagging distractions are video games. Video games take up most of his focus, trading input and outputs which not only inspire him, but tend to help him relax. And so he has put together in this video album variety special various thoughts on anxiety and video games, starting with
A flow state is when you are so engaged in an activity that your mind and body achieve fluidity and the world around you melts away as you become more engrossed in the task you are completing. It is the goal for a lot to achieve when playing video games. In fact, some might say it's the entire point of playing video games. As you continue through a level, attempt a boss, play a ranked match, the world around you melts away. You aren't worried about work on Monday, what's for dinner. You don't think about the tasks that need to be completed around the house or the bills that need to be paid. All that matters in these moments are the foe in front of you, the combo you need to hit, and landing the perfect punch. These are happy moments of near bliss as you, the digital avatar on the screen, becomes an extension of your mind and body. It is the flow state personified. It's a real-life visual representation of the feeling you have when you hit that state and feel unbeatable. What other medium of art can so perfectly capture this psychological phenomenon? None. That's why I enjoyed Armored Core 6 so much. For me, the design of the game is centered around making the player feel as though they are in a flow state every time they turn on the game. The pace the game makes you play and the fluidity of the movement coincide so perfectly for me that even if a boss took me an hour or 2 to beat, I was having fun the entire time because every boost, every dodge, every slash felt cool. It felt like a dance, making sure I didn't miss a step. It put me in that flow state where I wasn't worried about what's going on in the world. I was just dancing with some giant mechs and lasers. It didn't matter if the story is told nearly entirely in sound clips or voicemails. It didn't matter that you play on the same sets or levels multiple times because, well, the sets were beautiful in their own right. What mattered was the dance, the gameplay, the prescription of flow state. Even though the game was challenging, it was relaxing because it was fun. And that is why I think this game encapsulates the idea of the flow state so well. And because video games are a visual art form, taking different inputs with every playthrough, with every player, and every unique mech build, we can see the flow state recorded. We can see the improvisational dance of others as the pressures and tasks of their day melt away. All that there is in that moment is the game. You've had a rough day at work, you're late on an assignment, and you feel you're going to be anxious about it all weekend. You need to relax if you're going to enjoy the next couple of days off. But how? Watch some TV? Get a drink? Or what about
being chased by Mr. X, or hiding from a monster in the bunkers of World War I, or fighting some zombies?
It may seem strange, but horror games may actually help ease anxiety for some people. That is because when people experience a horror game in a known safe environment, the brain triggers a fight or flight response. And when the initial adrenaline passes, the brain is flooded with endorphins and dopamine. I'm actually not that into playing horror games, aside from the Resident Evil series, which I think transcends horror to just classic video games that are important to the history of gaming, but I do dabble from time to time. And I did dabble with one that is not a great game, but it did scare me. That is Propagation Paradise Hotel, a VR game that came out last year. Horror in VR just makes sense if you want to really toe the line of creating that fight or flight response in the safety of your own home. You can close your eyes, but you can't turn away when you have the screen of horror strapped to your face. And I do have to say that the release you get from taking the headset off after a eerie session is pretty nice. This relief doesn't work for everyone though. It can have the opposite effect for some. Sometimes, if a person is known to be very empathetic, they might find themselves too involved in the character's circumstances to find that relief. Or if someone does not feel completely safe in their real-life environment, they may not find relief from a horror game. But when it works, it hits right, like the save rooms in Resident Evil. After being in a heightened state of anxiety for so long, not sure if a zombie might jump out at any moment, that save room music becomes honey to the brain. That clutch grenade to help take down a mob or boss becomes another hit of dopamine. And suddenly, you've forgotten about that assignment. How could anything at work compare to the dangers you experience in a horror game? It's the same reason people go to haunted houses or to see a horror movie in the theaters. It's the rush of anxiety like a roller coaster, followed by the sweet relief of credits, a timely joke. Or, in the case of games, the action you take as a player, by acting on your fight or flight response, literally. Knowing that when you turn the game off, you'll be in the safety of your own room. And for those moments, all the pressures of the real world have slipped away.
Cozy gaming has really picked up steam in the last few years. Many may not have been aware of this niche genre of gaming until COVID, and the poster child since COVID for cozy games has been Animal Crossing, which seemingly came out at the perfect time to grab the world's attention. No fighting, no killing, no screaming slanders online. This was a game about building, about sharing, about community, in a time when people were being isolated in the real world. The no killing, no fighting, no toxicity.
Chicken chaser. Do you chase chickens?
Are the defining features of a cozy game. A game made for people to sit back and relax. Lots of frogs, lots of rabbits, lots of cute animals, really. Lots of organizing, cooking, and farming mechanics. There are also lots of videos on the internet of the perfect cozy gaming setups, which involves soft-colored gaming chairs and maybe a record playing, a fire going in the fireplace, blankets. I think you get it. This is a genre made to ease anxiety, to help people relax. Personally, I like the trend. I like the videos about how people have set up a cozy gaming space. I like watching the trailers for these games and getting excited for the people who get excited for these. And if you are looking to ease some anxiety through gaming, cozy games would be a great place to look.
The theme of this special has been anxiety and how games can actually help with anxiety, but they don't always help. Too much of a good thing becomes boring. It loses potency. For me, it's the same for even some of the best games that have been made in the last couple years. I loved Baldur's Gate 3, probably the best RPG to come out since Divinity Original Sin 2, but after my first playthrough, I have no desire to pick it up again. I'm also not big on DLC. On occasion, I'll try some out, but I'm never that excited for them. When I'm done with the game, I move on. For me, playing games can be like a stick of gum, and eventually I'll recognize some design patterns and the gum starts to lose flavor. Some last longer than others, like Baldur's Gate 3 took about 100 hours before I started to notice. Tears of the Kingdom took 70. Then I beat the game and move on. I do something else. The problem I can have with gaming is I like narrative-driven games, and those are typically played alone. And so I'm cut off from the rest of the world when I play. And that can feel good after a day at work, but if I'm in that solo world too long, the daylight's gone and I've wasted hours accomplishing very little, and what was once a relief now becomes an obstacle. That's why I actually like sometimes when the batteries of a controller run out. I take that as it's time to do something else. Talk to some real people. Go out and be active. Try to learn a new video skill. This is also why I think game length is important. So much emphasis is placed on a game being long. People want to make sure they're getting their money's worth if they spend $70 for a video game, and how they calculate that value is to equate dollars to hours. I think, though, that game length should not be a factor when scoring games as either good or bad, and certainly longer is not always better. I hear many professionals who make games complain about long lengths. They don't have 100 hours to invest in a game when they're trying to make them, and the same can be true when playing games in moderation. A 15-hour game can be perfect and doesn't require days of our lives to complete. Some games that stick out to me for the sweet spot in game length are Moss, Outer Wilds, The Last Clockwinder, Hi-Fi Rush. I mean, there are tons, and sometimes a long 100-hour epic can be good too, but I'm finding more appreciation for a well-made 15-hour experience. Just remember to go outside every now and then.